Iron Man is probably one of Marvel's most famous superheroes, and that's for a lot of good reason. Today, we're going to look at his hero kit in Marvel Champions, see what's good about him, see what aspects he's good with, and then rate him on a tier list. Now, all of this is considered in solo play because I did just get done playing 4 games with him in each of the 4 aspects, 4 basic aspects, anyways. And I'm going to talk about my experience with that and how I feel like he did. Now, let's go ahead and start talking about his hero kit. The first thing to note is that on his alter ego side, he has an ability. It says Futurist. Action, you look at the top 3 cards of the deck, you draw one and discard the other 2. That sounds okay, I guess. But it's even better because you're looking for specific cards with that. Now, we'll get a little bit more into talking about what those cards are once we flip to his hero side, but let's keep looking at his alter ego. He has a hand size of 6, hit points of 9, so on the lower side, and a recovery of 3. Pretty average. Now, we flip over to his hero side. He is a 2-1-1-9. 9 hit points, and he only has 1 hand size. So he's really squishy, and he can't do anything in hero form, at least at first glance. When you read his ability, or rather his flavor text, it says I am Iron Man. But his ability there is that he gets +1 hand size for each tech upgrade you control to a maximum hand size of 7. So he can go from a 1 hand size to a hand size of 7, which seems really good. And we get there by playing tech upgrades. Seems pretty good. Seems pretty good. So that's Iron Man in a nutshell. The 2 thwart is great, the 1 attack not great, and the 1 defense is making him really squishy. But let's take a look and see what other upgrades and what other parts to his kit that he has that will help him be a better hero. So he has an identity-specific ally here in War Machine. Makes sense, pretty thematic. War Machine is a 4 cost, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 4 health ally with an ability of if you exhaust War Machine and deal 2 damage to him, he can deal 1 damage to each enemy. That's actually pretty good when you're playing against Ultron. And unless you have a lot of weak or 1 health allies out left, that ability is pretty niche. So War Machine may not be the best ally in the game. So we're not off to a great start with his hero kit. Now let's move on to this. He has 3 copies of Repulsor Blast. Repulsor Blast reads, deal 1 damage to an enemy and discard the top 5 cards of your deck. For each energy resource you discard, deal 2 extra damage to that enemy. That's pretty good, especially if you stuff your deck with a ton of energy resources. But he already does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He already has 5 energy resource cards in his deck. That's pretty solid. The next thing is another attack event called Supersonic Punch. You deal 4 damage to an enemy, or 8 instead if you have the aerial trait. A 2 for 4 is okay, but a 2 for 8 is amazing if you can make that work. And it's fairly easy to make it work. Now, one of the best things about Iron Man's kit right here is Pepper Potts. She is probably one of the craziest resource generators in the game. You exhaust Pepper Potts, and she generates the resources on the top card of your discard pile. So if you have a double resource card on top of your discard pile, which can happen quite a bit, you get to generate 2 resources with her. Super broken, in my opinion. Next is Stark Tower. So this actually works really well with his Futurist ability. It says exhaust Stark Tower in Alter Ego. Choose a player. That player returns the topmost tech upgrade from their discard pile to their hand. So in Alter Ego, say you already have your hand size of 6. You Futurist, you look at the top 3 cards. There's 1 card that you really want, a tech upgrade, which really helps Iron Man in the hero form, and some random other card. You discard the tech upgrade and the random other card, keep that card that you really want in your hand, and then you use Stark Tower and you can pull that tech upgrade to your hand anyways. So Stark Tower can work really well, especially with his Futurist ability here. And now one of my other favorite cards in his kit here is the Arc Reactor. I love any hero that allows you to ready, and this does just that for Iron Man. You exhaust it and it readies him. Can be really good if you want to defend in the villain phase, or it can just be good because you're dealing with a lot of threat. Iron Man does not have any thwart removal cards except for his helmet, and then he does have the 2 thwart on his hero card. So you're really gonna wanna probably use some of his basic activations to be dealing with threat. And the helmet, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, the Mark 5 armor, pretty simple. You get plus 6 hit points for 3 cost. I like it. I like getting extra hit points. It helps reduce the squishiness of Iron Man. He goes from being a 9 hit point hero to a 15 hit point hero, and then he can still get more hit points from other cards down the line. Now, as we were talking about, Mark 5 helmet does remove 1 threat from a scheme. However, if you have the aerial trait, you exhaust it to remove the threat from every scheme in the game, which can actually be really helpful, especially in solo. Powered Gauntlets, pretty solid cards here, especially if you're facing Ultron. You exhaust the Powered Gauntlets, you deal 1 damage to an enemy, 2 damage instead. If you have the aerial trait, you can have both of them out there. They are not unique. So you can be doing up to 4 damage to an enemy with just these 2 cards. Now, Rocket Boots. At first, they seem kind of lame to me, but they really kind of bring the rest of the kit together and amplify everything. So the rocket boots give you plus 1 hit point each. So you go from being a 9 hit point character to a 15 hit point character with the Mark 5 armor to a 17 hit point character here with the rocket boots, which is a lot of hit points. But on top of getting that extra hit point, you also get to exhaust the rocket boots and spend a mental resource. A little bit harder when the core set came out by itself, but now with some other cards that you can add to his kit, which we'll talk about, it can be so much easier and very, very consistent to hit. So those are his hero kit cards. Rocket Boots ends up boosting your helmet, your powered gauntlets, and your supersonic punch, and it's just a good time. You build out his suit, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. Now, um, just an interesting thing to say here is I actually started playing Marvel Champions about a year ago. So the core set had been out for a long time, and I got all of the cards really quickly. Probably in the course of the last year, I got all of the cards, which led me to feel like Iron Man and all of those heroes in the core set were not that great. I haven't revisited the other 4 a whole lot. I've played Spider-Man more than any of the other ones, but playing Iron Man these last 4 games has really changed my opinion of him. He can be a lot of fun, especially with some of these new cards that have come out. So if you guys are, wanting to check the game out, the core set, you don't have to hate on them. You can love them. They are great heroes, and they only get better with more cards. Moving on, let's talk about the aspects, and we'll begin with the one that I feel like he's not the best in, and move on to the one where I feel like he is the best. Now, in solo play, he can build a great rush deck, but I feel like he's still not the best in aggression. And the reason for that is because he doesn't have hardly any cards that deal with thwart. You do have this helmet and then his basic activation, which 9 times out of 10 you're going to want to use for threat removal anyways. But if he had maybe a couple of cards for threat removal, he would be a lot better. But aggression, you're gonna want to be hitting his attack events as often as possible. You're gonna want to be getting out these powered gauntlets, and you're gonna be relying a lot on into the fray or cards like that that remove threat for you, so you're not having to worry about it too much. But I feel like in aggression, he's sort of the weakest. And there's not a whole ton of tech upgrades in aggression, anyways. So you're depending on the hand cannons, which can be nice, especially if you have some weak minions out there. But if there's not any minions, yeah, you get a little bit of a boost. So maybe it's still okay, but they're not they're not as good as could be. You don't have enough tech upgrades there. So you're depending a lot on allies and on overkill and on threat removal from minions being in play. If there's not minions in play, Into the Fray is useless. So really, Iron Man's great in aggression if you're going to be playing a multiplayer. In single player, he can be really good. He can be really strong, but definitely not the best. Next up is Justice, and I have a little bit to say about that because the game that I played didn't go the way I anticipated it, but if I had played just a few things differently, it probably would have done a lot better. Iron Man and Justice can be really good because you can get the necessary things that you need to back up Iron Man with the threat removal. You can deal enough damage here with his attack events, his powered gauntlets, things that'll just chip at the enemy. So you can just buff him up with the threat removal. But one of my favorite things to do is build him in a float like a butterfly deck because you want to run confused with that, which leaves Iron Man the ability to stay down in alter ego a lot longer than normal because the villain is confused. He's not going to scheme. You're able to build out your suit, flip up, and take him out in a couple of turns. You get float like a butterfly on the table, and now the powered gauntlets are doing 3 damage instead of just 2. Your repulsor blast is dealing 1 and then 2 additional damage, 3 additional damage per lightning resource, energy resource. And now your supersonic punch is dealing 9 damage instead of just 8. Everything is getting buffed up from your enemy being confused and having a float like a butterfly on the table. And it works out so well to be able to do so much damage with that, with all of this. It's great. It's a really fun way to play Iron Man in my opinion, even if it's not the strongest. Now, I have a hard time with these other two aspects. Trying to decide which one was the strongest. I feel like a large majority of the community really love the repurpose build for Iron Man in protection. But I really enjoyed also doing the leadership build with all the tech upgrades on the allies for Iron Man. I felt like that was really good. But if we want to give one of them weight over the other, I think thematic play is going to be more uh, helpful, I guess, to think about it, which may also lead to the same decision that you guys would make as to what aspect is best for Iron Man. So the next aspect I think is going to be leadership. Getting allies out, they can be expensive. So trying to get those allies and then get the tech upgrades on them to help Iron Man with his hand size is a little crazy. When you could just be paying for tech upgrades from your hero kit or even from your aspect of choice. So leadership is going to take a third, a very very close third to second, I guess is the right word. Second to protection. Leadership was a lot of fun. I felt a little thematic, kind of, because I was able to be like a leader of the Avengers, which is how I kind of see Iron Man. He may not be the leader. I feel like Captain America is more the leader, but Iron Man is definitely like second in command, if not, um, co-leader with Captain America. And having Avenger allies come out into play, being given tech upgrades like Iron Man is giving them a super suit of some kind, can be really, really fun. And it works really, really well, especially if you're giving Ronan upgrades. Ronan is an Avenger. You get power gauntlets on him, you get your inspired, you get your reinforced suit, and just all the upgrades that you can on him. And he gets to be insane, insanely strong, and Iron Man is just like, "Yeah, dude, I'll just throw all this tech at you." It works. It works. I feel like Iron Man can be strong in leadership, but at some point you are not playing Iron Man. You are playing sort of like a CEO of the Avengers or something, which is interesting to me. Now, moving on to protection as being the strongest, also the most thematic for him. And the reason I feel that way is the name of the deck that I gave him is for this protection build was the Nanite Armor Suit. And I say that because it's kind of like that armor that he had in Endgame when he was fighting Thanos, where like parts of it would like shrink and like come out of the big cannon. That's the way it felt. It felt like I was trying to go up against Ultron as though Iron Man were facing Thanos, and I would throw a tech upgrade out there, and then I'd be like, and I'm gonna remove it so I can boost my stats over here. It felt really thematic, and it was really strong. Because with repurpose, you get rid of something, you boost your stat for that round with the cost of that item, and you are able then to keep that on you for the entire round. So if you say have a force field generator which costs 3, you put that on his attack stat. He attacks for 1 or thwarts for 2, You ready him with Repurpose, give that 3 to his attack stat, so now he attacks for 4. Then he gets to ready again with the Arc Reactor, he's attacking for 4 again, and just for 3 basic activations, he's removed 2 threat and 8 done 8 damage, which can be game breaking in solo. So Repurpose is obviously a very, very strong build for him, especially since getting those tech upgrades out there is only going to benefit him, and being able to discard them when you no longer need them because you have all your other tech upgrades out there is just so, so good. So Iron Man is great, very, very good in each of those aspects. I don't feel like there's really a bad aspect for him. I think he can do well in all four, but I feel like protection and leadership and protection are the best aspects for him. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What aspect you think is best for Iron Man? What cards you like to run with him? Some of the basic cards I like to run, of course, are Ingenuity, Moon Girl. Those, of course, both require the Genius trait, which Iron Man has an alter ego, and you're going to be staying in alter ego for a while, so getting them out there is not that hard. Other basic ones, for the Float Like a Butterfly build, I do like to have Professor X in there. And then, of course, things like Quinn Carrier, Helicarrier, Avengers Mansion, just your standard stuff there. I don't really feel like I need to run Endurance in this deck because I already have hit point buffs here. So those are just some of my thoughts there on the basic cards you would want to include. Now, as far as where he is on the tier list, I feel like Iron Man is probably mid A tier. I feel like there's stronger heroes than he is, like Magneto, but he could be mid A tier to high B tier. He's such a good hero, but he is kind of niche in some of his things. So definitely high A or mid A to high B tier. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and we'll see you guys in the next video.